handing over to Dennis for Prototype and Public Services.
Thank you.
Very much.
Hi guys. Haven't done anything yet. That's right. So first of all, thank you very much for not mentioning the World Cup. As you perhaps can tell from my accent, I'm from a country that really didn't qualify. Which might be a blessing for you guys, because I actually have a three-piece orange suit. And towards the run-up of a World Cup or any event, I try to wear it as much as possible and irritate my colleagues. Yeah, you're spared all that, unfortunately, fortunately. My talk is slightly different from most, because where I work and what I do might be slightly different than most. But I just want to check how much of an old bull I am in this audience. Just to ask, who works in public services or does work in public services here? Great stuff. Who does work that doesn't, for the majority, involve anything to do with IT? 1, 2, woohoo, here we go, yeah. Most of my work doesn't involve IT. I still do Agile. Strangest thing ever. Let me tell you about a little bit my background, because I did do IT for a little while. Now that you know I'm Dutch, you can imagine that I suffer from, how do we call it, a triple arrogance. Because I'm not, I don't know how many Dutch people you've met, but they're pretty straightforward and self-confident and all these other things. But a little while ago, or quite a long time ago, I was also working for a company called Accenture. Now that's the second boost of arrogance. Yeah, it's like my head kind of sort of exploded. And as part of that, I was relatively successful in there, which meant that I thought I couldn't fail. Another boost of arrogance. And then in the year 2000, I joined a company which was different, which got to NASDAQ, got a lot of money to go and ride the first internet wave and build a lot of e-businesses. And it's brilliant, I did it. I got my Accenture booklet out in exactly knowing how to do everything in a waterfall method. And there was another team kind of in the room next door doing things, that wasn't called Agile at the time, but simply called time box development. Later on a little bit of rapid application development. And I thought they were crazy, absolutely stark raving mad. And I thought they would fail, and guess the one who failed was me. And not only did their project succeed, unlike mine, they also had more fun, which really irritated me the most. And my team sort of left and kind of tried to secretly, on a Thursday evening over beers or a Friday evening over beers, go like, can I join your team, the other team? And I started to lose people, and I got like, okay, I better learn what the hell they're doing. And that's got me on my journey of Agile. But a long time ago, I was a youth worker, and I love public sector stuff. Kind of doing something there and frontline work. And I go like, how do you translate that into services? How do you get this Agile malarkey into stuff that is not only IT? And that's where I kind of ended up. And that's the story kind of I want to tell you. Now, I'm slightly worried about this. Because on this, first question it says, my glasses are on my back, was the main speaker relevant to you? Definitely, mostly, not really. I really don't know. What I just hope is that a story from a little bit of a different world might also give you some insights and some interesting understanding. But I don't know. I definitely am learning something from you, even from also from the last speaker, like the cone, etc. I'm going to use that immediately. Thank you very much for that. So let's get on. So this is my world. Town hall, especially very local public services, things that are out there delivering the service for Leeds and other cities and counties, etc. Now, that world looks like a stale town hall, but actually most of the money goes to adults and children's social care, 60 to 70%. and rising. Shortly there will be no more money for streets and keeping the lights on the street and bin collections and all these other things. I don't want to worry you, but it's going. If you look at the trend, that's sort of where it's going. A lot of the work goes into elderly care, into children, helping vulnerable families, etc. People who need some help. That's where the money kind of goes. Now, to bring you a little bit into my world, or public sector world, here's a little exercise. Can you imagine, think about your household income right now. How much money, don't tell anyone, this is Britain, you're not just explaining, this is how much I make. But in your mind, think about the number that together in your household, you're getting in on an annual basis. Now, think about next year, you make 10% less. What are you going to do? Are you going to drink less coffee? Are you going to drink less beer? Are you going to drink less coffee and less beer? Are you cutting down some holidays?
I just get another job.
Just get another job, yeah. So you can't get another job. Well, some people do, Work harder. What do you do? 10% is reasonable, you can kind of cope with it. Maybe. Depends. Think about the next year again. You make another 10% less. What do you do then? Even less holidays, less kind of hobbies that are kind of out there. What do you do with that? Definitely quit. Yeah. Give up. Yeah. And if this job is your passion and that's what you want to do, or there's a statutory obligation, like in the public sector, for you to do that job. Yeah. So then, the next year, you make 10% less again. What do you do then? And then the next year, you make 10% less again. What do you do then?
You get rid of assets, don't you?
You got some assets, so you might move house. Reinvest some money, whatever you do, yeah? Sell your children, yeah? Whatever, yeah? But quite often it's very fundamental, yeah? Very fundamental. And the next year, you make 10% less again.
Sell your kidney.
Yeah. So, yeah. And the next year you make 10% less again. Yeah. So, and say this was 50K, if you go through this, it's just a round number, I don't know what you make, then you got almost half of it, of what you ended up with. Now, this is not just some example. This is a 40% reduction. Have a guess what your local councils, who provide children's services, adult social care, your streets and your lights, etc., over exactly those same years have been reduced to. Not 47%, but, 49%. Currently, over all these years, over 7 years, this has been the reduction. And it's gone incremental. And I sometimes say, if this was France, people would be on strike the whole time. It's true, yeah? But it's kind of like, we suck it up and we muddle through. And I'm like that now as well. I've been Anglified so much. And I go like, okay, here we go again. Yeah? It's like a little bit of the frog boiling in the pan, if you know that story. Yeah? And so slowly the pain increases and you just keep on going. But you know what you need, what is happening now in the public sector is that people need to become incredibly creative. And they're thinking about all kinds of different solutions, very innovative. Some give up. Some go bankrupt. Northamptonshire is a council that actually has gone bankrupt now. Central government had to come in. And there will be more following. But there's also a lot of creativity going. So this is how it feels for the public sector. The demand is coming in. And this is me as a Dutch guy sometimes plugging the holes. But there is a useful thing here, is that some of them have discovered Agile. And you can tell that these people, if you compare this picture to you, they're not coders. They're not developers. They're not testers. Yeah? These are mental health workers. Completely different. So everybody knows the original manifesto. Now, this is sacrilege because I'm saying for us and for not only public sector but a lot of other services, it needs a revision. But in a way, that's Agile. So, with a bunch of people, a whole bunch of people, GDS and lots of other people, this is the iteration. You can sign up to it. Still, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working prototypes over comprehensive business cases, co-design and co-doing with users, with lots of other people, over expert rollouts, learning and developing over following a set plan, and changing behavior through experience instead of somebody ramming in theory and this is what you need to do. A different mindset to it overall. So let me give you an example. Anyone been to Hillingdon? Hey, hello. So have you been to Heathrow by any chance? Anyone been to Heathrow? Quite a few more. Then you've been to Hillingdon. You didn't know it, but you've been there. So this is wholly in the west of London. It's quite large. It's quite diverse. It's got lots of problems, especially also because of the airport. You have a lot of unaccompanied asylum children, etc. So children's service in Hillingdon give you a really completely noddy non-IT problem. Children's services, how it sometimes is run, is to say, I'll explain it in some detail, but it doesn't do it justice, is here's a problem with a family. I'm going to see this family. You seem like a lovely couple, but your child, are you together, by the way? But your child, there's a problem here, maybe we should kind of help out. But I'm the social care worker, and I want to help you guys here with your child as well. And as part of that, I need to do an assessment. Great, I do an initial assessment. I go back to my boss, and my boss says, this and this and this, I think we need to do this. And you say, well, okay, it's worth doing that. Let's do a full assessment. And I go back, and I do a full assessment, and we check out how you're doing, how your parenting skills are, and all these things, what are happening. And then I go back to my boss and say, here's my full assessment. Can I now do some interventions and do some social care work with them for so long, and maybe get a mental health worker looking at them, working as well with them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you say yes, and then I do the work. Now that's a lot of process, and actually that seems really quick, but it takes a long time because there are lots of approvals and waiting, et cetera, involved. So we go into Hillingdon and we look at how can we improve that, but how can we work on that from a strengths basis? So we looked at all the folks there and go like, how do they do their work? And there was one guy who stood out. Since it is recorded, I won't say his full name. It's a good story. He's the hero of the story, but he doesn't want to be the hero of the story. He was. There was actually a Guardian article written on him, but I'll call him Robert. And Robert is a social care worker, and he performs well better with the families than anyone else. And we go to Robert. Why are you doing this so much better? And they go like, nothing. And they know why. No, nothing. And really kind of afraid of the whole conversation. And we keep on going and keep on going. And he said, well, I do this and this and this. What it turns out was that Robert was not necessarily following the processes according to the council. He was doing good social care work, but he couldn't care about the bureaucracy and anything else around that. What he did was, instead of doing the initial assessment, was going to the family and go like, oh, you got these problems, start working with them immediately. And then working with them, he understood a little bit better what happened to the family, and then went back and kind of wrote the initial assessments and said, well, this is it, and the manager approved it. But actually working on more intervention, then got the full assessment going, and the paperwork was following what he'd done already, instead of asking for approval. He was ticking the boxes on the paperwork in the end. So we said, well, Robert, can you please, can we organize this and make sure that you become the best practice of the rest, how you do it? I said, no, I don't want that. My managers will find out. Like, no, it's okay. Yeah? We'll talk to the managers, etc. And there was a whole cultural thing to get over. And yes, great. In the end, we started a prototype. Enormous prototype. Robert. He was official now, the prototype. We couldn't get it any bigger. He was the man. And so that a lot of people could see, how do you do that? How do you take it from the assessment and the full intervention and then work together with the whole family? And then people got like, okay, this is how you do your practice. And there was a second person joining, and a third person joining, and a fourth person joining, until we had a whole team. And then there were more, and we called them a pod. And then we started another team, and another team, and another team, and another team, and it grew over time. And initially, the sprints were 1 day. Okay, Robert, you're doing this. What is the change that we want to do with some other people? Great, we'll try this out. We do this in a controlled way. And yeah, here's the next. Yeah, managers come in and say, yes, I agree with these and these changes. Let's do this and this and this now. Sprint planning, get going again. And later on, the sprints became 1 week, and then 2 weeks, until it became operational practice for those teams themselves. We could be able to step back. I'm saying this is not an IT thing, but actually there was an IT element as well, because some of the systems that wanted these approvals at certain ways and were designed according to the process and the protocols from that weren't appropriately configured. But we had one team, we had social care workers with IT people kind of sitting in the room, trying to figure it all out, and with users. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there is some theory behind it, believe it or not. And people seen this maybe as part of service design. And this is called a double diamond. This is bringing service design into Agile. And that means, right at the beginning, as part of your discovery, you go wide. You try to see what on earth is going on. So before we met Robert, we looked at what's the demand, what are the customer flows, what are some of the customer insight, what's not going well, what is going well, and doing all kinds of analysis. And then narrow down to make an impact, to start a prototype. And then within the prototype of Robert, it went broad again, and then we narrowed down, and then we went broad again and went narrow down. That's kind of that concept, which you probably do at the moment as well. It's just what service design are calling it. The difference here is that we go wide and refine. Some things we don't need to prototype. Some things are just, and you probably refer to it as the same way, JFIs or JFDIs, just do it. Just change this around. Some of these things are more technical things. You know what, there's a little plan. You can have a Gantt chart. If you're really certain that this is going to go the way it is, but a lot of it is kind of prototyping, and you prototype with more and more people. And of course, at a certain point, the prototype team was almost bigger than the normal service, and that brought a whole change through. And instead of a classical local government kind of restructuring at the end, everybody kind of gets a new job, everybody knew what the new job was like already. In a more fancy diagram, it's kind of like that. Yeah? You understand the needs, you observe, you empathize, you try to come up with hypotheses, you prioritize it, you design something, and you get prototyping very quickly. Now, we do this in the NHS as well. We usually call this also building a walking skeleton. Is that a term that you use as well? Yay. Good. So unfortunately in the NHS, I'm not allowed to use that anymore. Strange. But kind of, yeah, thin slice prototypes. But there you go. And that's kind of what we do. Yeah. So this is all nice in theory. Not? Maybe. But there are some ingredients in our world to that secret sauce, and I don't know if they relate to what you've got. First of all do you recognize that you're dealing with complexity? And usually, yes. Within the public sector, they go like, you know what, there isn't a guy, even a fancy consultant or a manager, who goes like, I have exactly all the answers. on how to deal with half of my budget all of a sudden, and all the demand that's coming in, and vulnerable people in society, and you name it. Yes, this is exactly what you need to do. No, there are not that many. Sometimes there are. We went to a local authority, and somebody was coaching the senior management team, and the first couple of weeks, it just took, the whole focus was to make sure that the managers, the senior managers, were saying, I don't have all the answers. Because there's some pressure sometimes. Especially if you're external or you're a manager, like, oh, I need to know the answer. This is what I'm getting paid for. There's the lure, there's a trap of that. Now, how do I usually explain what is the difference between what is really complex is by this. If an English person is driving here in Leeds, going from A to B, you get, and you don't know the city, you know these, but you get your Google Maps out and tells you exactly what to do. Brilliant. Business as usual, simple stuff. Complicated or tame problems are when I get you into Amsterdam and get you to go from A to B. I know, anyone been to Amsterdam? Yeah. So a lot of people tell me, oh God, there's a tram coming and cyclists all over the place, and where do you go? Huh? So, okay, you can get to A to B, but you can get killed in the process. So you might not actually get there. So there's some learning involved. There is some extra observation and some concentration to practice, and the first steps are a little bit more difficult, but you get around. I took my company to Amsterdam, and we were cycling around there, and they were kind of closely following me. And when we handed in the rental bicycles in the end, one of my colleagues kind of went on the floor and kind of like the Pope kind of kissed it and was so happy to get off the bicycle. She didn't dare to admit to me that it was quite a scary thing. So yeah, that's another way to do it. For my sins, I did at a certain point a project in Cairo. Anyone been to these countries which are absolutely chaotic? And I thought, you know what, you get your Google Maps out, your Waze out, and you get from A to B. No way. Impossible. Because the street names change on a regular basis. Who changes the street names on a regular basis? I mean, because these politicians are out of favor and then they change the street names or whatever else. Even the areas change. And all of a sudden there's a donkey on a crossing and starts lying down there or dying, and the traffic is stopped. Or the president will drive through the city at probably 120 miles an hour because he's afraid of being assassinated, and lots of streets are closed off and you can't go there anymore, or some bridge over the Nile is closed off and nobody knows. So if you get from A to B, you hail a taxi and you say, can I get there? And the taxi driver doesn't know the way, sort of knows it, and starts driving in a direction. It's very unnerving at the beginning. Gets out of the taxi at a certain point and asks around. And then people go like a little bit further, and then he drives a bit and asks around again and asks around, and slowly, bit by bit, you get to your destination. So even something that looks very simple becomes a complex problem. It's a very complex dynamic field. So how do we detect what is complex and what is not? And so the second thing is, kind of talked about a little bit, we don't have all the answers. And management stuff is related to this. So if there's a critical problem, you can kind of command people. If there is a fire here now, please don't follow me. We're not going to have a whole session talking about, and a nice agile sprint about, how do we do the fire exit, etc. We follow you, right? To kind of say, okay, guys, this is the way out, and we follow the signs. There's command and control. Everybody now get out. Fine, we're happy with that. If it's done quite often, it becomes very processy. And yes, this becomes a management thing. But at a certain point, you don't have the answers. And it becomes, some people say, a leadership thing. And a leadership thing doesn't mean I'm telling you some stuff. It's asking questions and finding out. And it's a different world. So what I often do in my life, strangely enough, is not anymore kind of just setting up a agile team, even if they were social care workers, because that's the easy bit. It is the bloody managers. How can they have a much more agile mindset in saying, I don't have all the answers, I need to center context in the boundary. There's phraseology around adaptive leadership there of getting onto the balcony and overseeing what's happening, describing that view, guys, yeah, with adult social care, we need to go this way, and make sure people are delegated to do the work and stay away from them at many moments, manage the conflicts and encourage, coach and challenge. It's a different discipline. So, it's also not just about the Scrum teams. The leadership is the encouraging participation on the bottom. The focus of change is innovation, diversity, and deviancy. Robert, in the official literature, is called a positive deviant. How can you find the people who do a lot better with the same resources, but the reason why you can't find them is probably because they're doing something which is countercultural or doing things in a different way or against the official policy. Process of change instead of waterfall, agile, but also the organization. Anyone heard of teal organizations where actually agile is taken into business as usual and managed through commitment and through purpose. And the use of external people, consultants, internal, external, they're the facilitators instead of the experts. So it's not just about getting a team going for us. Probably for you the same, don't know. There's a whole thing around this. What are then the interventions around us? And I'll skip that for now. And then, very important, we'll do an exercise around this, is that in services, in public services, it's very difficult to stop people multitasking. When before I was running a dev team, you could get people just to work on this thing. If I get a social care children's services team working on something, in improvements to develop their service better and better, they say, no, wait a second, I got this case now of this child that I need to handle. Or there's some other things that are happening. They can't just work on improvement and project work, they have their normal day-to-day work as well. And that's really tough. So multitasking is a myth. Yes, all the women here, yeah, even for women, it doesn't exist. Ooh, you can walk and talk at the same time. And if I had some things on my hand, I could even juggle. I won't show it now. I had a couple of beers. And because that is, I've learned that to some extent. But the switching of it is very difficult. So here's an exercise. If you can find a partner in the room and stand up. So what I'm going to ask you is very simple. You count from 1 to 3, but I would count, I first say 1, then you say 2, then I say 3, you say 1, I say 2, you say 3. Yeah? Yeah, we'll do this. 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2.
3. Go ahead. So I'll stop you there, because it's already, such a simple thing is already surprisingly difficult. Because of the 3, somebody else constantly has the other number. Huh? So what I'm going to ask you now is a slight variation to it, is that instead of the 1, I'll ask you to clap. So it is clap, 2, you say 2 then, clap,
2,
3, 2,
3.
yeah, no, it's very difficult. Go for it, give that a try. Thank you. Okay, stop again. Stop again. So one more complication to it. And that is, the 1 was still a clap, the 2 is a stamp, and then you say the 3. Yeah? So, stamp, 3. No, Sam? 3. Yeah, so yeah, the 1 is still a clap. Yeah. And then 2, 3. Yeah, go for it. Guys, stop. The last thing I want to ask you is, can you just do and say 1, 2, 3 again? No more clapping, no more stamping. Just 1, 2, 3 with the pair. Yeah. Okay, guys, that's it. Yeah. Have a seat. Have a seat. Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, the first question, you're already saying it, but how did the last time feel compared to the first time? All of a sudden easier, eh? Your mind got into gear of switching. But it is surprisingly hard to switch. Context switching. Yeah. If anyone still has a kind of email constantly pinging up or a Slack message pinging up while you're doing your work instead of kind of going deep and focus work, that's a bad thing because you context switch the whole time and you lose something. You constantly lose something, and that was all about. And you think, I can count to 3, I can clap, I can stamp, but one with the other, in the combination of it, it becomes quite difficult. So useful thing to show people who don't believe that it's useful to focus on one thing at a time. But there's also some research out there. Oh. And that is this. Consider this. This is crazy stuff, I find. If you do more than one project, more project at a time, yeah, time available per project is this, yeah, and slowly you have more of a loss of context switching. So by the time, yeah, you do 5 projects, because of all the context switching that is happening in your mind, you hardly have any time left to actually do the project. And people know this, kind of, oh yeah, we're talking about this now. How does this go again? We talked about this last week, and this and this and this and this and this, and you constantly switching. And that's very difficult to avoid in my world. I think it might be difficult in your world already. It's very difficult for me to kind of do that in my world. So what do? Well, as much as possible, start at least by locking people up in a room. Doesn't sound very nice. They are allowed out at the end of the day, but get a team together, although they have a day job to do, but get a team, multidisciplinary team usually, together of people who take the referrals from a children's services to the social care worker, to the manager, to somebody who does specific interventions, etc., into a room and get through those cases through and do those improvements. But they're not allowed to always attend that board meeting or the other kind of management meeting or do another thing or other improvements or whatever else they do or worry about their normal caseloads. They are not. They are only supposed to be focused for a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, maybe 4 days. Sometimes lucky we can get them for 5 days. Full time. But they actually work on cases, so it's not like they're going on holiday. They're actually taking care of the work. And then quite often they will go back into their normal job. Sometimes we can keep them in a prototype team. Sometimes they need to go back. And then it can all crumble. Unless we say, 1 day a week, you're still focusing on that. Every Friday, come together, put your out of office on, and this is what you do. Compartmentalize. Make sure you just do that. Or every day, from 9 till 10, this is what you do. Again, out of office on. Make sure you don't get disturbed. Get together in a separate room, separate space, and just work on that. Just to make sure people are focused and stay focused around that. And that's a really hard thing for us. So that's what we do overall in the public sector. And the last thing around this is how can we work on properly self-managing teams? And I just wanted to check who's done this exercise with my colleague Matt, who was here maybe a year ago? I don't know. Can anyone remember standing somewhere in a space and trying to identify two people in the room and standing at equal distance from each other?
Yeah.
Yes? So a lot of people not. Shall we do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I thought we swapped clothes last time.
You did swap clothes.
Was that your friend as well? Yeah.
I'm not going to get you to swap clothes. Great. Okay, so I'm going to give you some rules, and that is you can't walk further than these pillars. So you've got to stand on this side, and you can't go further than those chairs. Yeah? Rule number 1. Rule number 2 is pick a person randomly in this group, not me, and don't point at them, don't say anything, just pick them. Yeah, you got them? Got that other person? 2 people, I mean. And then I'm going to ask you later on, when I say go, to move yourself at equal distance of those 2 people. So if I pick the 2 of you, I'm here at equal distance, I'm here at equal distance, you're at equal distance, sort of them. Yeah, so you can move around, but within those spaces. Very simple, isn't it? Now, I don't know if there are people here who are extremely good at mathematics, but can you imagine, yeah, I have picked the 2 of you, you have picked 2 other people, you picked 2 other people, and everybody's moving constantly. The parameters of this, of everybody trying to place themselves at equal distance of these 2 people that you picked in the room. Pretty mind-boggling, not? Quite something. So, people who've done it before can't say anything. How long do you think it will take? You got this crazy Dutch guy will be here the whole evening? Huh? Or do you think, well, a minute? Or what do you think? How long will this take? It never?
8 minutes.
5 minutes?
8 minutes.
8 minutes, wow. Anyone else? Okay, so the best way to do this, of course, is to just try it out. Yeah, shall I get my clock out and do this? So let's see if you can do it faster than the last time. That's the main question, really.
What the last time was?
I'll ask my colleague. Ready? Go. Still moving.
We're in the same sport.
Oh, still moving. Yeah. Oh, somebody still moving? No, I still see movements. Oh, somebody's really moving there. Oh, this is really sad, by the way, because you moved and nobody else moved. Nobody picked you. Sorry. So this was 1 minute and 11 seconds. So the person who said 1 minute, yeah, gets the prize. Really well done. Huh?
Slower than last time.
Slower than last time. There you go. Yeah, bigger group, smaller group. So what do you think would have happened if I said, well, over here, you're going to be the designated program manager. You're going to be your project manager, and you're going to be the project manager, you're a project manager, and you're going to be in charge to achieve this aim of the people that they pick 2 people in the room, and you're going to stand at equal distance. Can you imagine what happens? Absolute and utter chaos. I'm sometimes really cruel, and I do this with people to show the difference between programmatic waterfall stuff versus Agile. They tear their hair out. They can't organize it all. And then I say, well, you know what? Why don't we just have a go? And everybody stands. And then it happens in a minute. Yeah, can you imagine the sight then of their face and go like, this is what it is. So if you want to do this in your organization to bring the point across, that will be great. Perfect. Let's go back and figure out why this happened, the way it happened. Well done, guys. I did this at a certain point it's called the RUSI, which is an institute opposite Downing Street number 10. It's full of military people and kind of a think tank, yeah, around the military and the people who make military stuff. And we were trying to get them to loosen up a little bit and do projects in a different way. So one of my colleagues called Nick Oblensky kind of did this exercise with him. And it turns out that people who are part of the military and anyone who works for the military organizations, the Boeings, the ADSs, etc. of the world, are also ex-military. They're all kind of, they kind of look slightly different from you, by the way. Everybody's kind of sitting up straight and so he got them into the room and they go like, how does this work? And yeah, all of a sudden it worked. And I said, this is a brilliant exercise. I'm going to use this now often. What is it called, Nick? And he said, it has no name. Somebody told me this. And said, I'm going to name it after you because you've got quite an exotic name, the Oblensky exercise. And I said, does it always work? He said, it works everywhere. He does it all over in the world, apart from in France. And I go, well, why? He's very British. And why? He said, well, the bloody French. Yeah. You get them into a room, and I get them to do the exercise, and they don't move. They first want to talk about the philosophical concept behind it, and really understand it before they start to move. I've done it in France, and it still works, by the way. But yeah, he's probably got a different group of people. So why do you think that exercise works?
We've all just got a very simple problem to solve. Lots of people have got it.
Indeed, yeah. That's a critical element to it. Anything else? Ooh. Working parallel? Yeah.
Decision making.
Sorry, say it again?
Decision making bottom up, given the power.
Different parts, you can see it, yeah.
Constraint space.
The constraints, yeah.
You actually look at the problems and mention all that. It's a very complex problem to break down to many constituents.
Yeah. Indeed, very complex problem, but yeah. So there are a couple of golden rules, and we're trying to make sure within the public sector, in our services, these are the rules there. They're similar to kind of how Agile teams work in any case, but one is, yes, are there boundaries around this? Yeah. How long are the sprints? Who makes the decisions? Who's the product owner? All these other things that are very important to do. And you had kind of boundaries here. But at the same time, you had the freedom to act. Within that, nobody was telling you, go now and stand there and go stand there. You could do that. And at the same time, you had an ambiguity tolerance in the sense of you were happy to have a go. It's late in the evening, you had a beer, there's a Dutch guy telling you to do something which seems impossible, but you're still happy to have a go. So, yeah, so happy to kind of try it out. But at the same time, you had unambiguous feedback. There were feedback loops constantly within your system. Your aim was to move yourself the equal distance of two people, and you see them moving, and you go like, oh, now I need to move this way. Ah, now I need to move this way. Now I need to move this way. And those things are really hard to organize in a public sector environment or in a service environment sometimes. How do you get quick feedback? How do you really kind of thin slice prototype it and get some feedback if it works or doesn't work? And where people are saying, well, this is too risky, you're playing with lives. How can we make sure it's a controlled environment that is feasible to do? How can we make sure that people are willing to have a go? Instead of saying, well, yeah, no, my boss will come down hard at me if I fail. No, if you fail, but you fail often and you fail in a controlled way, it's fine. And so putting those things in is what we often struggle with, and is one of the secret sources of how we try to make that happen. Now, I got nothing to sell you. You're happy to know. But I have got a call. So I think the two worlds are people who do some bits with IT, but within services, and people who do mostly things with IT have a lot to learn from each other and can kind of occupy. You were saying earlier that the thing that you look for in a developer is somebody who can learn really quickly. And yeah, even in a week's time. Yeah? and doesn't mind kind of failing. And there's a certain mindset that comes with it to kind of do that. So how can we get to services which are not only IT, but are click and mortar? Yeah? Public sector is not brick and mortar only anymore. It's not only clicks. You can't just do everything online in terms of children protection or helping elderly. There's some bits that you can do online, but how do we make sure we get a proper, holistic, whole service, methodology, working space kind of together that kind of works? So my question to you is, yeah, wherever you can contribute also to the public sector, they need your help. Please do. Thank you very much.